Hello, I'm Kamal Santamaria. This is Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera, your weekly look at the world of business and economics. This week, the Arctic. The melting ice, the land grab, the trillions of dollars of oil and gas waiting to be uncovered, it all weaves together into a narrative that's both contradictory and concerning. Because should we even be drilling for oil and gas given all the potential environmental effects? We'll take you to Alaska where the effects are being felt and people are wondering whether the prospect of jobs will trump environmental concerns.
I'm Charles Stratford reporting from northern Ethiopia, deep inside a mine shaft, hunting for a precious stone that it's hoped could bring this country great wealth.
So this week on Counting the Cost, we're at the top of the world, where for decades there's been a land grab going on, but at glacial pace. Why? Because there's oil there, simple. How often have we talked about territorial claims because of what lies beneath? But while discussions between competing nations have so far been mostly academic and cordial, things are now, like the planet, starting to heat up. We're talking about a quarter of the world's oil plus 30% of natural gas, large quantities of minerals, all believed to be under the Arctic. We're also talking about trade routes, with Arctic ice vanishing at 13% per decade. The Northwest Passage is creating disputes. Canada and the US, for example, are arguing over whether it's an international waterway or sovereign Canadian water. Then add in Russia, which aims to increase its military presence in the Arctic with a self-contained command by 2018. And it applied in early August to the United Nations, claiming a territory which is worth $30 trillion, thought to hold that much of oil and gas, according to the Serbian Times. Moscow wants to increase the capacity of its Northern Sea route by 20 times over the next 15 years, a sort of Suez Canal of the North, if you like. And this is what those claims look like, and you'll notice on this map where we've removed the ice cap so you can actually see the mass of sea that we're talking about. Then we'll put in the sea routes, the lines in black, and now you've got the territorial claims. Russia is the largest, coloured in orange. On the right-hand side, you've got green, the USA at the top, Canada, the red-coloured claim, and then Denmark at the bottom in pink. But there is always that ethical debate. Should we be tapping the resources under the Arctic, given the environmental damage caused by fossil fuels and the fact that it undermines moves towards renewable energy? US President Barack Obama's recognized the United States' part in climate change. He was addressing the Arctic Council, made up of 8 permanent members and another dozen observers.
The fact is that climate is changing faster than our efforts to address it. That, ladies and gentlemen, must change. We're not acting fast enough. I've come here today as the leader of the world's largest economy and its second largest emitter to say that the United States recognizes our role in creating this problem and we embrace our responsibility to help solve it.
But then he also recently granted permission for Shell to restart oil drilling in the Arctic Sea. So as always, there are cross purposes. We've got 2 reports from Libby Casey to bring you. She's been in Alaska looking at the first-hand effects of climate change and also the potential effects of oil.
Make sure they don't suffer, the animals don't suffer.
Inupiaq Eskimo Larry Adams relies on the sea and land for his food and his way of life, hunting most of what he eats. But that's getting harder.
It's real unpredictable because of the ice change, and it don't get us sick. It's not safe no more, and it's scary. It's real scary.
Alaska may be the last frontier, but its Arctic coast is the front line of climate change. Not only is it harder for hunters, but the village is in increasing danger.
There's no safe place to go, right? In western Alaska, those villages are not connected by a road system, so evacuations are not possible when storms come in outside of their communities.
400 people live here, more than a third of them school children, and some of the 85 houses are in danger of falling into the sea. The Army Corps of Engineers estimates Kivalina has about a decade until it's uninhabitable. There is a proposal to move 7 miles away onto the mainland with a price tag of more than $100 million, but the community is undecided. Moving is a daunting and sad prospect. As Kivalina's tribal council chief, Millie Hawley has to help figure out what to do.
This place identifies us as a people.
So if you move,
then we lose our identity. We lose who we are.
Larry Adams says he can't imagine moving, even a few miles away, farther from the Chukchi Sea. But Kivalina's people may have no choice as some of the first victims of climate change. A way of life for thousands of years.
We survive off our land, and we have Inupiaq values that we use as a foundation for who we are. And a lot of it is a respect for nature, respect for elders, respect for others, sharing, cooperation.
The Inupiaq people of Kotzebue, Alaska, continuing their heritage even as their village modernizes. Locals remember the Exxon Valdez spill in 1989. Prince William Sound is on the other side of Alaska and more than 600 miles away. But take that disaster and put it in the Arctic's icy waters.
If a large oil spill were to occur before freeze up, once the ocean starts freezing up, it's pretty much game over until the next summer.
But in a place only reached by plane or boat, where the unemployment rate is nearly 3 times the national average, opportunities are scarce. And if oil drilling is successful, it could mean work and visitors.
There's some benefit in the sense that, Shell and Conoco and other oil companies pump some money into the community through various kinds of jobs, or now through the borough's science department. So, they pump some money through research.
The community makes a lot of decisions together about the future, but they don't speak with one voice about offshore drilling.
I'm sure it would be good and help a lot of families because a lot of people out here can use it. But the thing you got to think about is just my kids.
That means making sure her kids can live off the land and sea.
So we see what's happening there. We've talked about the likes of Russia and the US, but there are, of course, more countries involved, like Iceland, for example. And I'm pleased to say that joining us this week is Iceland's Foreign Minister, Gunnar Bragi Sveinsson. He's actually in Copenhagen, stopping over after a trip to Alaska. Minister, thank you so much for your time. You are a permanent member of that Arctic Circle group that met in Alaska. What did you make of the meeting? How did you, feel coming out of it?
I think this was an important meeting because it was well attended. People from a lot of countries, and the message was clear. We need to step up. We need to be clear when we come to Paris in December for the COP21. Everyone must share the burden of the transformation from fossil fuels to green energy to fight the climate change. And the speech from President Obama was very clear about that. The US is going to lead the way in these 2 years that they are chairing the Arctic Council, and also they are going to definitely be a role model when it comes to reducing the emissions.
You make the point about the other nations that were attending. You said there's good attendance from a lot of countries. I don't know that I quite get that, but you've got these observer countries there who, technically speaking, don't have a lot to do with the Arctic, and I wonder if you risk getting into those sort of almost United Nations situations where countries that don't have a direct involvement can end up having too much influence.
No, but everyone shares the, let's say, the worries about the melting of the ice, for example, in the Arctic. When the ice is melting, the oceans are getting warmer, acidification of the ocean, so on. All of this will affect a lot of countries, not only the countries in the Arctic Council, these 8 Arctic Council countries. So it's not a surprise that those observers like to be there. And in fact, they play an important role, for example, in working groups and committees that is working in this Arctic Council system. But we have to remember also, this meeting in Alaska was not on the basis of Arctic Council. It was a global meeting that the US invited to, just to address the problem and find ways to let's say, take this team even closer together. I think it was a success.
Okay, so we're trying to save the environment, we're trying to deal with climate change, but climate change in the Arctic also means things open up, means there's opportunities for drilling, and this is, again, the problem I have here, that it's all quite contradictory. President Obama gave a great speech, but he also opened up drilling to the likes of Shell recently in the Arctic. Aren't we at cross purposes here?
Of course, melting of the ice or the troubles we see ahead for the environment in the Arctic, that also gives up some opportunities. And I can well understand that we should use the opportunities it's giving us for economic growth, for example. But I always said that if there is going to be some benefits from, for example, drilling or harvesting the resources in the Arctic, first of all, I think the people in the Arctic, the indigenous people, should benefit from it, and also it should only be done by strict rules, very strict rules and regulations, that and with best practices. Hopefully we manage to do so, and I understand this criticism about the drilling behalf of shell out of the coast of Alaska, but it seems to be that they're doing it under this strict control and regulations, so hopefully that will be okay. But we can also say the same about the possibilities, for example, in transportation. We will probably see more shipping through the Arctic, more cruise ships going there. And that also can be a threat if we see, for example, some accidents.
Tell me what Iceland's vision is, because you're right there on the front lines there. If climate change is going to be affecting anyone, it's probably going to hit you first. So what does, I know this is a broad question, but what does Iceland want from the Arctic?
Well, we are seeing it from first hand. You know, our glaciers are melting like the ice in the Arctic. The sea around Iceland is getting warmer. We are a fishing nation. Fishing industry is the second most important industry in Iceland today. And we worry a lot about what will happen to the ocean. How is the health of the oceans going to be? If this is going to be continuing, we have to fight it. And we have also been drawing attention to the green energy that Iceland is full of. We have hydro, we have geothermal, and that could be important when we are going from fossil fuels to greener energy. But I have to mention one thing regarding this, is that a few weeks ago, IMF announced a report on subsidies in the fossil fuel market. And this, as the IMF says in their report, we are talking about $14.5 billion every day, $10 million every minute, which is going to subsidies for fossil fuels. And we need to take that money as much as we can and transform it to greener energy, to fight the climate change. We are not supposed to be supporting the polluters. That's what we seem to be doing today, if we if we believe the report from IMF.
So Iceland has not got
very interesting moment.
Iceland has not got any oil interests, as it were. I mean, we've made a point on this program about the trillions of dollars worth of oil and gas that is there. Are there Icelandic companies wanting to get involved in that?
Yes, we have possibilities of finding oil northeast of Iceland. There are 2 or 3 licenses, or 2 or 3 companies already searching for it. But, you know, we don't know if we're going to find oil. But that does not change our view to for example, the importance of promoting the green energy and what that can do. But I mean, like everyone else that has a possibility for strengthening economy, even if it comes from oil and gas, we will look into it, of course. But Iceland is not going to let's say, do anything that will collapse, for example, our fishing sector or tourism and anything like that.
Minister Gunnar Bragi Sveinsson joining us from Copenhagen. We thank you very much for your time today. And later on, counting the cost, we'll move from the top of the world to the roof of Africa. The Ethiopian highlands have rare treasures of their own, opals, which could keep Ethiopia's economy ticking over quite nicely. That's still to come. We look at Turkey now, however, where an economy already in decline is now being hit by further political uncertainty. The ruling AK party can't form a coalition. Caretaker government's running the country. ISIL is on the border with Syria. The Kurds are still seeking an independent state. How does an economy function in those circumstances? The answer is simply not well. The currency has slumped 21% this year, making the lira one of the worst performing emerging market currencies monitored by Bloomberg. And once again, it is that prospect of an interest rate hike in the United States which is fueling this, along with stagnating growth in the EU and Russia. More than $6 billion has been taken out of Turkey, a country which is really dependent on investors pouring money in so it can pay its bills. That has all resulted in a predicted current account deficit this year of around 4.9% of GDP. Compare that number to the emerging market average of 1.5%, and the picture doesn't look too hopeful. Hard to believe that just a few years ago, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan was almost unstoppable politically and economically. Turkey grew at an average of about 5% over a decade from when he took office as Prime Minister in 2003. In the first 3 months of this year, it slowed to 2.3%. Erdogan also made progress in the long-running conflict with the PKK, the Kurdistan Workers' Party, a conflict that's cost more than 40,000 lives. But that peace has come under strain as Turkey launched airstrikes against PKK targets in the southeast, plus it's taking on ISIL in Syria. So let's talk more about where it's all going wrong. Joining us from Istanbul is Professor Orhan Aslanoglu. He is an economics professor at Marmara University. Orhan, first of all, why are investors taking their money out of Turkey? I hear all this talk about the US interest rates. Surely there's more to it than that.
Yes, that's the Turkish economy, as in many emerging market economies, has benefited a lot from the global liquidity abundance. And this abundance, this liquidity has helped to Turkey to increase its capital inflow to Turkey. And that has contributed also to the consumer credits, investment credits, commercial credits, and with domestic demand, Turkish economy has substantially showed its growth performance. But now, with the Fed, when the Fed starts to raise interest rates, the global abundance of the liquidity will decrease. So it will affect Turkey, pushing interest rates to higher level. The higher interest rates and the less availability of this capital inflow to Turkey is likely to reduce the credit growth in Turkey, and also it is affecting growth rate in Turkey. It has already started to affect, but it's likely to affect more when the Fed starts to raise interest rates in the future.
So, does this actually highlight an inherent problem in the Turkish economy, that it is over-reliant on this so-called hot money, the inflows of capital and the liquidity which you talk about?
The main point is that Turkey has some structural current account deficit problem. We are importing a lot raw materials, energy, and our import is very high compared to our exports, and we have a trade deficit and in general, in broad terms, current account deficit. So this is putting pressure on the exchange rate, our local currency. So when the global liquidity will start to be less available for many countries, the pressure on Turkish lira is increasing. The higher the exchange rate, the more depreciated Turkish lira is causing inflation to get higher level in Turkey. One of the main problems in Turkey is high inflation still, unfortunately, compared to many emerging market economies and developing countries. And the high inflation rate also putting pressure on the interest rates. So on the one side we have current account deficit, and it's pushing exchange rates to upper level, and the high exchange rates also putting inflation to high level, and the higher the inflation, the higher the interest rates.
Are there other internal problems, though, to do with the economy? Perhaps manufacturing, perhaps unemployment, the sorts of things which are perhaps separate to the things you've already talked about, which is the US interest rates and the currency and the like?
Indeed, what this current account deficit, there are two sides, I can say. One is we have high imports, energy imports, raw material imports. So declining prices of commodities is good news for Turkey to some level. But on the other hand, related with Turkish manufacturing industry and employment, we should increase our exports more fastly. We should increase the share of the high-tech products in our exports. Our manufacturing industry should be more competitive. So one problem related with our low exports during these days, the markets, our neighbors, European economy, Middle East countries have slow growth rates. So we cannot export well to those countries, and this is putting negative pressure on Turkish manufacturing industry and employment opportunities.
The other thing that Turkey needs, Orhan, is some stability, and I'm talking about political stability here, because it just does not have that at the moment. How do you see the next few months playing out in Turkey? The prospect of the AK Party losing further support in the November elections, and what that might mean for Turkey's future?
Yeah. As you know, that political uncertainties or geopolitical uncertainties, problems, usually pushing down the consumer confidence, investor confidence. So when we look at those figures, consumer confidence indexes, real sector confidence indexes, we see all of them at very low levels because of this uncertainty and also this political uncertainty. And now we have another election soon, so this uncertainty will continue at least for 2 months. And if we add how the government will be formed, and it will take maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 months. So the second half of this year seems to be not good news for our Turkish growth rate, or just work on the structural reforms on Turkey.
Orhan Aslanoglu talking the Turkish economy with us this week. We thank you for your time. Finally this week, Ethiopia ranked as one of the 5 fastest growing economies, averaging almost 11% a year over the last decade. Much of its economy is based around agriculture, but the country does have plans to develop its mining industry too. Currently, it only contributes 1% to Ethiopia's economy. The plan is to raise that to 10% by 2024. Charles Stratford went to Wallo in Ethiopia's northeast, an area generating a lot of interest among global gemstone experts.
The Ethiopian highlands are often called the roof of Africa. It's a rugged and breathtakingly beautiful landscape. And a discovery in recent years has got precious gem experts around the world very excited. Opals, and of an exceptionally high quality. We meet a group of miners as they head back to their village. Look at the blue in that. Seto has been mining for 2 years. He and 12 other men work in this 40-metre-long tunnel. The group earn up to $2,500 a week for the stones they find. Now, Sato has been digging here for about 20 minutes now, and he's just hacked into a piece of rock. And you can see here, this is the opal. And the guys who work this mine say that on a good week, they can pull out around 50 kilos of these stones. There is nothing to support the roof of the tunnel. Seto says the last time a miner was killed here was 3 years ago.
Landslides happen when it rains. It's frightening when you're inside the tunnel. But I don't want to stop this work until I'm successful.
The government has supplied the miners with basic tools and says it wants to improve health and safety standards. It's encouraged them to form cooperatives. They sell most of the raw opals for processing abroad.
Since we formed the cooperatives, we have been able to save money. Some of our friends have bought cars, others are buying houses.
This is one of only 2 gemstone workshops in Addis Ababa. Ethiopia's opal industry generates around $25 million a year, a long way behind Australia, which produces more than 90% of the world's opals. This stone on the left is worth around $5 per carat. They increase in value as you move along the line. This last stone is around $150 per carat and is valued at over $3,000. All are found in Ethiopia. The government plans to establish infrastructure here to sell cut and polished stones.
We're now inviting investors, mining companies with experience to come to Ethiopia.
The opal is known as the Queen of Gems, and so men like Seto continue digging despite the risks involved.
And that is our show for this week, but there's more for you online at aljazeera.com/CTC. It'll take you straight to our page, which has individual reports, links and entire episodes for you to catch up on. You can also get in touch with us by tweeting either me at KamalAJE or our business editor at Abid Oliver Ali, and do use the hashtag AJCTC when you do. Or just drop us an email. countingthecost@aljazeera.net is the address. That is it for this edition of Counting the Cost. I'm Kamal Santamaria from the whole team. Thanks for joining us. The news on Al Jazeera is next.